Well, today is Tuesday, December 27th, 2016.
Today's episode will be low energy. It's a tryptophan induced, dealing with family induced stupor that we're in. So,
Yeah, the holidays are over
uh,
and everybody's on vacation this week anyway, so we don't expect anybody to watch this episode. If you're here, thank you for coming. It's great, but it's really not going to be a good episode. It's just, we couldn't even be bothered to come up with an intro.
so here it goes.
Oh, well, corrections from last week. There's a couple minor corrections, not really anything too crazy.
I think we need to raise the threshold on what we consider a correction. It's getting a little crazy. You're enjoying it too much. It's too much of a game for you people.
I think when we were talking about the Ryzen benchmarks, I said it was clocked at 3.6 gigahertz. It was actually 3.4. So 3.4 gigahertz, which is good, which means that the instructions per clock, that's only in AMD's favor if the lower clocks are there, because I think the comparable Intel part was likely clocked a little bit higher than that. So that's really good. And we also got Hatsune Miku. Hatsune Miku is one of the characters apparently available for gate blocks. If you didn't watch all the way to the end of the episode, then you missed out something that's really amazing.
That could be a trap that we could have said. We didn't do it, but it could have easily. It's like, if you correct this, come on.
Hatsune Miku is only one of several available characters. All of the demonstration videos apparently have Azuma Hikari as the character that can join you on the... and if you missed this at the end of last week's news, you really should check that out because it was really funny.
You think they'll give you all the characters as you go, or will it be like DLC?
Oh, yeah, it's totally going to be DLC. An Ultimate Healing Voice, you don't give that shit away.
That's going to be what do you think those will cost? God, that's such a good business model.
Well, I'd say with the Hatsune Miku thing, since that's like a Japanese pop star, I guess, then I think you're going to get in a situation where you pay for the contents, like you have a concert, maybe a private concert or something like that.
They should partner with brands like Coke. Like, you've got a one in whatever chance of getting this character, and you can only get it
when you open the lid.
Exactly, and that's the only way you can get it.
That's how we got diabetes in America.
No, well, if they want to kill off all the old people, fix that. Well, I guess the old people probably aren't the ones using this. No, that would make it worse.
600-pound Japanese people. That would be a sight. That would be a sight.
But hey, Coke, if you're listening, you're leaving money on the table here.
That is how you cure the aging population problem, diabetes. You heard it here first.
But see, they're not the ones with robot lovers.
I think we just figured out the whole corn agenda. A little bit too much tin foil, moving right along. Buffer bloat. I saw this is an article that we included only because I know this guy. I met him at Penguicon a couple of years ago, and I've talked to him several times since. So buffer bloat, there's kind of an article about it on Slashdot here that you can take a look, but it's really, the editorial summary here is not really super well organized. We've included some better articles and some better videos, and this thing on DSL reports where you can learn a little bit more about buffer bloat. But basically, buffer bloat, if you've never heard of it, it's $1 billion problem, and Dave Tot started working on it like 5 years ago. And it's basically, if you've ever used your internet connection and it's been really slow, but it has not been dropping packets, that is sort of an entry-level thing for, the situation where you've got buffer bloat. And basically it is you're sending information from one end of the tunnel to the other over the internet, and all of the networking devices along the way have buffer. And so when there's congestion, if all of them buffer it, you can introduce some non-trivial latencies into that packet stream. And so you're talking about things like VoIP and things like streaming video. The packets will get there, but it'll get there so out of order as to be useless. And the better behavior would be to drop the packets. And so after a whole bunch of work, some new algorithms have been created and refined and stuff like that for both Wi-Fi and completely fair wireless queuing and that sort of thing. So the situation with that is that we have the algorithms now, and they're being incorporated into the Linux kernel. And so because they're being incorporated into the Linux kernel, they've sort of, I think, become mainstream. And so I think everybody should read about it because buffer bloat is $1 billion problem. We even see Cisco job postings mentioning buffer bloat when Dave has lots of fun stories about how he went to Cisco in the beginning and it was like, you are Cisco, you are $1 billion company. Let's talk about buffer bloat. And they're like, it's not really a problem. but there are other talks from people like, engineers at Alcatel and other labs. And so it's really, buffer bloat is a really interesting thing to learn about, and you should check it out. And also help solve the problem if you're in a position to do so. Moving right along. Alexa. So I guess because it's the postseason holidays, what sort of technology did you guys get, in for Christmas? And was it any Internet of Shit devices? Because this article says that Alexa is going to take over the universe for voice assistants. And I have a hard time buying it.
Yeah, they advertised it as one of the real life-changing technologies that came out in 2016. Being able to talk and get things is the life-changing technology. And to me, this is like 3D TV. I just don't care.
I like the button. Like Amazon's got the button, and you just push the button, and it's like press for morphine, press for Tide detergent, press for new socks, whatever you want.
But even that, like the abstraction layer, how much time is that saving me? And how many buttons would I need?
You just open up like your pantry closet, and it's just a mesh of buttons, and it's like, let's see, I need this and this and this other thing.
Well, think about at 50 buttons, how much faster is it to use text search than to go down the button grid?
At the button grid.
Yeah.
Well, we could always do drone deliveries with Amazon. See, Amazon really is, I think, changing the way that people buy things. Now, maybe not just with the button. I mean, we're sort of poking fun at the whole button end of things. But the real situation is that Amazon, I think, is actually changing how we buy things.
Oh, yeah. I think Prime has done more than anything else, because I'm now willing to buy paper towels through the mail. Think
Groceries,
about that.
paper towels.
Think about that. I would have called you insane as a younger man if you told me I was going to ever buy paper towels through the mail. I've done it.
How does the shipping make sense on that? That can't possibly make sense.
Well, you have to buy 50 rolls, but that's one of those things you just stick in a closet, and they don't expire.
Amazon is changing everything in other ways as well. Not just Prime, not just with shipping to the end user. It's also about data analytics. You get into the situation where I think Walmart, being as large as they are, they have the huge data center complex where they do all of the real-time analysis and the analytics is sort of what helped Walmart become Walmart. Amazon, with their brick and mortar store, is going to have analytics to the nth degree.
Yeah, it's knowing what your customer wants before they do it seems sci-fi, but I think Amazon and Google are both doing an incredible job. And I say incredible, I don't necessarily mean that's a good thing. It's very intrusive. And
They're so good at spying on you.
Yeah, but they are figuring out what you want, and they're right there to sell it to you when they know that you want it.
Now, the interesting thing that happened with Walmart is that when they started carrying products, there were a lot of products that Walmart wanted to carry because they were anticipating what their consumers wanted before the consumers really knew. But the supply chain was such that when your product is carried by Walmart, most product vendors really can't keep up with that kind of demand. And so Walmart has to step in with logistics as well, to the point that, for some products that Walmart carries, even things like Bose speakers, Walmart's really the OEM there. They're just manufacturing to Bose specifications, or maybe not in some cases.
It's also, the other thing that Walmart did is cut margins, because getting into Walmart is the holy grail if you're a supplier. If you make a product, you want Walmart to carry it. Maybe not so much now. They're losing some of their market share to Amazon. But when you have a big major player like that, and for them to come to you and say, you're out unless you cut 10 cents per unit, you almost have to do it.
Yeah.
And it's good for the consumer, but it might not be great for the economy.
Yeah. And so how long before Amazon starts to step in on the supply chain side of things and start to do all of that? I mean, can you imagine if Amazon starts undercutting, domestic suppliers, domestic manufacturing, if they turn some of their robotics technology that they use in their warehouse toward manufacturing and toward the Americanization? Is that the Dread Pirate Bezos' grand plan? I don't know.
It's amazing. They now print books on demand. Sometimes you buy a book from Amazon, it was printed the day you bought it.
So what other sorts of supply chain incursions has Amazon had? I would be curious to hear from the audience in the replies to this. If you guys have any insider knowledge, or you've dealt with Amazon on the whole popular product supply chain, whatever, it would be really interesting to hear from you, because we can, read that information and base future stories on that. But for the here and now, what sort of Internet of Things things did you guys get, and how plugged into your lives is it? Did you get an Alexa? Did you get an Echo? You got Google Home? You doing automation? Do you giggle when you tell Google to turn your lights red? Because, that's what you can do with Google Home, which I guess is, the killer feature. But, it's like always on listening microphone for voice control of appliances. I don't care.
I bet a lot of Internet of Things adoption comes through gifts, because some people are like, I don't really need that. But during the gifting season, it's like, oh, look how clever this is. We'll have a giggle about that.
It's a toy. No, let's not do that. That's encouraging 1984. Let's not do that.
It's a toy that attacks Russian banks and Ukrainian heating units.
What was it you said? What a time to be alive when a baby monitor in Montana can take out Russian banks.
And now there's a whole new slew of baby monitors, fresh and ready for the reaping.
Well, 7-Eleven is also experimenting with this whole supply chain thing. They're using drones for delivery. This was sort of a pilot project where they they use drones for delivery, so I can get a Slurpee on demand delivered right to my door.
I don't really care about the voice controlled stuff, but this is cool. I like this. I like the idea of getting drone delivery, but I can't imagine this is ever going to work.
Amazon Mega Prime. You're talking about paper towels. I want you to deliver toilet paper. I want you to deliver it to the second window.
Yeah. Could you turn the drone 90 degrees so the camera is not looking in the window as you
deliver the TP?
But I where we live, there's a lot of people who have dogs and they ignore them, and they're in the yard and they bark all day, and they're, basically feral because people don't take care of their pets. And I can't imagine, like, there's going to be one time a drone drops down to deliver a Slurpee, a dog dives into the blades, and that's going to be the end of the drone delivery service.
It's kind of like Uber and the bikers, because Uber had that self-driving thing that they did, but then they discontinued it because apparently they kept going into the bike lane and hitting bikers and things like that. It's like that, but with dogs and propellers, and that's probably bad.
Or power lines, because that's going to be a big price tag on, because they're going to make you fix it, right?
Yeah.
If a 7-Eleven drone goes into a power line,
the power company will bill you.
That's going to be expensive.
Ask me how I know that. Not with a drone. That was when I was a kid. That was a long time ago. We won't talk about that. Cyanogen Mod is EOL, kind of, sort of. Cyanogen Mod is the really popular, open operating system replacement that you can run on Android phones. Well, it is no more. It is now Lineage OS, but the backstory here is really interesting. Lineage OS is sort of the old Cyanogen Mod developers doing a new thing. There was this Reddit post also that I will share that is one of the developers that worked at Cyanogen Mod. Is like
allegedly.
Allegedly.
We don't know that.
Yeah, we don't know that. They fired the OS team at the end of July. And so this guy basically concludes by saying, if you're running Cyanogen Mod now, don't do updates, because there's still a company behind the product. They may push updates that enable ads and other sorts of things, but they're starting Lineage OS to be more in line with the original ideals of the project. So I know that Cyanogen Mod is very popular in our audience, and so I thought this deserves some attention.
This harkens back to the dot-com bubble, and a lot of fringe economists, who I would agree are right, have called that we're in the second dot-com bubble. It's just taking longer, because you have these companies like Cyanogen Mod, and they're like, oh, we got this amazing product and everybody loves it. And then a year down the road, they sit down and they say, how are we going to make money off of this?
How are we going to pay the developers to work on this?
Yeah, the venture capital's drying up, and we've got nothing to show for it. And, Twitter and Facebook have both faced this challenge. Like,
Are facing. Well, not Facebook, but Twitter.
We have this thing that everybody wants to use, and it costs us a lot to run it. But how do we make money off of it? And the answer is usually pretty sinister.
Yeah. Let's spy on everybody. How does Google make money on the billions and billions of dollars that they've put into Android app development? And then that'll keep you awake at night.
Yeah.
Not good. I guess it's advertising. Google's number one business is advertising, and it's just...
Well, if you can't identify what is being sold, it's usually data. It's usually advertising. They're usually farming you to pay for the free product that you have.
It is interesting that Linux at its core has basically escaped this, because I can't think of a situation where a company has really successfully co-opted Linux and open source stuff in a negative way in order to have something similar to this. So that's good at least.
Well, I think the big ones, they sell service, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's how they get around it. And Linux is obtuse enough that you're always going to be able to get away with that.
Yeah. Well, Red Hat, I think, has done a really good job commercializing it, as has OpenSUSE. And those markets are really handy. So maybe there is a market for something like this, but Cyanogen Mod just approached the commercialization the wrong way.
Well, also, it's so, like the process of getting it on there is so combative to the carriers. They all hate it. None of them want you to use it, and they'll go out of their way to stop you. So it's hard to sell a product where another vector of that same product is trying to destroy you at every turn.
Well, let's be honest. I mean, most carriers are violently anti-running the latest version of Android on their hardware anyway. It's like even the Google version. It's like, no, we need to get our urine smell on it, and then you can deploy it too. It's like, oh, thanks, carrier. That's great.
So, if things keep going the way they are, the PC is going to go in that direction. We have to stop it.
Yeah, that's why you're watching, right? It should be good. I've got some news from Congress. Congress critters. They we should have talked about the whole $800 billion to combat propaganda or whatever.
Oh, that he signed it.
Yeah, they signed it into law.
You know, we first talked about that story. We used the Daily Caller link, and I mentioned, okay, Daily Caller, it's a shitty source. We get it, but nobody else covered it. And the comments were like, well, nobody else covered it because it's fake. Well, it's a law now.
Oh, I told you so. We snuck it in the middle. Yeah, but it's what kind of like. To me, that just signals that there is a problem more prevalent than any, because one, Congress does not move that fast, ever, at least in America. I mean, my God, it takes us 2 years to get anything done. And the second thing is the situation really is that the Daily Caller, like, I mean, let's go meta here for a second. How messed up is it that the news situation in America already didn't really cover that story, and it's already been signed into law?
Yeah, well,
that's messed up.
I was talking with a lot of blue pillars over the holiday there, having the Christmas dinner. And it occurred to me, I think this is the first time in 30 years at least, probably more, we have an interesting situation. We have a corrupt media who is being outed by a corrupt president, or president-elect, and we have a corrupt president who's being outed by a corrupt media. So in the crossfire, we're getting truth. Maybe that's a good situation. I don't know.
Pretty sure I read about this in a dystopian science fiction novel. Not good. Well, speaking of Congress doing other stuff, Congress Encryption Working Group says that encryption backdoors are near unworkable. And so, like, that sounds good. That headline, like, that sounds, but then you read it and you read the report and it's like, well, we've got to figure out something else. It's like, Jesus Christ, guys.
If you read just the headline, you would think that the author of this report was Captain Obvious. But then you read the text and they're like, well, this is bad. You can't put backdoors in, but we do need a way for law enforcement to bypass this. And it's like,
let's figure out a way.
But that's who we don't trust.
Well, it's not only that. It's not even necessarily that it's. You have to think fourth dimensionally. Even if you trust law enforcement today, you may not trust law enforcement tomorrow. And I'm sure that half the population is feeling that with, the current president-elect. It's like, no, I completely trust our government today, but when that guy's in charge, I don't know. And that's going to happen with every election cycle.
I think if you trust law enforcement today, the next question should be, so are you getting over your lobotomy? How are you feeling? Have the seizures stopped?
I do think that it is a really, really awful situation that you have technologists and people that really understand and get the technology that are advising Congress critters, not just in America, but in countries all over the world. It's like, look, you cannot weaken the technology. You cannot introduce something to the technology that makes it more exploitable, even for law enforcement purposes, because they will be exploited by the criminal element, because there is nobody more technologically sophisticated than the criminal element. And so because of that, you're not in a situation where you can ever demand something like encryption backdoors. But encryption goes all the way back to the founding of America. Our founding fathers used encryption for secure communication abroad when they were in France, when they were in the United Kingdom, or England, I guess, whenever they were traveling, encrypted communication was the norm, and it was very, very strong, essentially unbreakable encryption for the day. And so I feel like that classifying encryption as munitions, as we've done contemporarily, is the right thing to do, and that the citizenry has the right to bear arms, not the right to bear arms that have some sort of subtle defect introduced to them. That's just not, we have to defend against that at any cost.
You also have to think about sort of the modern dogma is that Russia is attacking everything. They're in all of our stuff. They're influencing the election, the news, they're hacking, and we're helpless against it. You know, that's sort of like what we're being fed. So don't you think Russia's going to get right in on this back door? I mean, they'll have access in a week. If we're that susceptible to them, how can we let them have this? That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's really just. And technologists are like, well, no, let's introduce technologies for auditing and verification and signing, so you can be sure that, you know, when so and so has signed something, that it is really coming from so and so. Those technologies sound good. It sounds a little Orwellian because of the whole tracking thing. And you talk about like Bitcoin for transactions and how, you know, the entire transaction history is basically immutable. You can still have some anonymity, but the blockchain, the chain of transactions, is all signed and it's all put together. And we're moving to having more and more services like that, not just Bitcoin, but all kinds of other things where it's trust and verification. It's a little away from what we have now with like SSL encryption, where we have, you know, these trusted central authorities that give us quote unquote real certificates. But, you know, as we've seen, those central authorities that give us real certificates can be co-opted into, you know, issuing fake certificates for Google and fake certificates for this, that, and the other. And that's not really a backdoor. It's just sort of a flaw in the approach. And that's what a lot of these encryption backdoors and things, weaknesses that have been introduced have been sort of the fly in the ointment for how those have been implemented. And those have directly led to things like the OPM hack, where outsiders, maybe Russia, maybe China, we don't know, was able to access the Office of Personnel Management records. The weaknesses that they used started out with weaknesses that we're 99% sure were introduced by our own intelligence community in order to be able to, quote unquote, backdoor the encryption, just very subtle flaws. And so, yeah, it took 10 years, but it came back around. So this approach does not work. And this report concludes that does not work. And yet we still have people that are just banging their head against concrete. It's like, we have to find a way. And it's like, no, it's like saying we have to find a way for 2 + 2 to be 5. That's just not, we're not being honest with ourselves. Moving right along, Europe is getting a new satellite system to improve GPS because Northern Europe's always had terrible GPS. Well, they're getting their own satellite system, so that'll be good, right?
Yeah. And I think China's got one, Russia's already got one, and the sky is going to be full.
Full of satellites. Well, this is nice because, you know, devices could use more than one tracking network. So it's really not a big deal if you get a cell phone and it's blocked by something. You know, it could use a global positioning thing. You could also make sure that one of them is not lying, which is like sort of the big thing. You know, when stuff's going down in Syria, it's like, oh, GPS says I'm 50 miles away from where I am. They can do that. That's part of the technology of GPS, is that they can mess with the signaling in any given area to throw off tracking or throw off even low precision GPS that might be used.
Does this have the built-in nerf for civilians, the same as GPS does?
I don't know. I looked for that, but I didn't really find. I didn't really find that. The nerf that we're talking about, if you guys aren't familiar, is if there's anything going more than 600 miles an hour, GPS just starts giving you nonsensical, wacky answers. Because missiles.
So it'd be interesting if this doesn't have that, because that would give you an alternative for your missile delivery system.
Missile delivery. Could be good. Could be, I don't know. Also, part of this is better coverage for search and rescue operations. So these satellites will be able to pick up like emergency transponders or emergency beacons or whatever. And because it's picking up the emergency beacons or the emergency transponders, you've got better satellite coverage for that than you do right now, I guess. So if somebody gets lost in the woods in the middle of winter in Norway, they'll be able to be found, which I guess is a good thing. Woo.
Not mountain. I don't think we should save mountain climbers. Do you know how much that costs?
Quite a lot of money.
Yeah.
Well, it's the end of 2016. Let's review all the crap technology that came out in 2016. This is by no means exhaustive. This is more meant for you guys to be able to participate and say, hey, this came out in 2016. I'm excited about this. Or this came out in 2016. let's all crap on it, because I think that would be a fun forum exercise to be like, hey, this came out and it was awful. So we'll see. I don't know. The first thing on the list is the Apple AirPods.
I saw a picture. You know those horrible earlobe stretching devices, the little circles that. So a guy had that, and he had like the disgusting earlobes. He had mounted some fasteners so that his AirPods were in his earlobe, so they couldn't fall down. So his earlobe was like stretched up, and it was in his ear. And I saved that to my phone. And whenever I get in an argument with somebody, and they say I'm too cynical by saying that modern human lives have almost no value, I show them that picture, and it ends the argument.
Oh Lord, this is basically, it's Apple wireless earbuds. If you've been living under a rock, they have a battery in them and they charge. And I think Linus did a review, so you can go watch a review. We're never going to review these. We just no, just not going to happen. But apparently they're okay. Like, they're okay headphones as far as headphones go. They're wireless. They're not great. They're not earth shattering. It's just Apple wireless earpods. I like the name. We included it only because of the name. EarPod, really?
I think for the price, they're not great.
That's probably true, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can get a much better set of headphones for less. Quite a bit less, actually. So, well, you can get the same set of headphones that has almost identical performance characteristics from what I read for $35 versus $179. It's just wired or wireless.
Let's remember that Apple owns Beats, so their idea of good audio, a little questionable.
There's also the Snapchat Spectacles.
Yeah, you can record video through your glasses.
So what you're telling me is that the reason Google Glass didn't take off is because it was not made for idiots?
Well, too many features. Well, let's see how these are. $210. Well, $245 on Amazon it looks like, but it's a little steep, I think, even because it has one function. Doesn't do pictures, just does video, and it only sends it to Snapchat. Can you even save local from these things?
I have no idea. Maybe if somebody got one of these, they'll let us know. But I guess Snapchat really is that much of a thing. I don't know. You go to some party and somebody has one of these, and it's like, "What are you doing?" And it's like, "Oh, I'm Snapchatting right now." It's like things. It's like 30 years ago, things that you would say that would be mistaken for something said that was lewd. I don't know. It's just.
I think if you're at any sort of decent party, no, a camera is never welcome. Nobody wants video of it.
Yeah, that's probably true. These things look a little bit too much like the face masks they were using in Eyes Wide Shut, I guess. So that's not a good thing. That's actually very, very bad. But the Microsoft Surface Studio, I don't mention this because I think it's a good product. I mention this because I think that we've seen sort of a role reversal this year. Apple is acting more like Microsoft, and Microsoft is acting more like Apple, which is sort of a cycle that they go through about every 10 years or so.
I think Apple's out of ideas, and so is Microsoft, but Microsoft can still steal Apple's ideas, and that's kind of what they did here.
It's an iMac, but with a touchscreen and a really nice display, a really, really nice display.
And don't forget the puck, which we kind of crapped on, and everybody said we were crazy, that it was great.
But pucks already existed, but I guess the software part of it is sort of a thing. I really think that Microsoft screwed up by putting a mechanical drive in there. They should have just, at this price point, they should have just gone for 2 terabyte and 4 terabyte solid state drives. They shouldn't bother with the whole mechanical hard drive thing, because mechanical hard drives is as like your boot, your OS drive. No, this is not a good situation to be in for a machine this pricey. Good Lord.
And one that you're going to move around so much.
Yeah.
It's got some mobility, and it's meant to be sort of wrangled. Yeah.
But I really would expect this kind of a form factor out of like an iMac. And then we've got the MacBook Pros. The MacBook Pros are sort of, even though they've got the touch bar, it's still really conservative, I think. It's a really conservative design. It's really not much of a departure from their old designs. And in some respects, because it's not, I don't think it's really even up to the currently available state of the art. Like if you look at, really cheap mainstream laptops like the Dell XPS 13, the Dell XPS 15 is getting ready to come out. Better specs, true quad core, better battery life, better screen, edge-to-edge display. Apple could have come up with some of this stuff. Come on.
I think the AirPods are evidence that the ideas aren't flowing anymore. And so 2016 was kind of a year where they were just going to coast off the cult status. It's like, we know a lot of these people are going to buy it no matter what. We'll skip a year. We'll be fine. 2017, we'll try something new.
But wait, our laptops are still using 4-year-old processors. It's like, damn it, well, I have to upgrade those anyway. It feels, the MacBook Pro update really just feels like an afterthought. But then that begs the question, is Apple becoming a consumer electronics company? Are they focusing on like the iPhones and the iPads where there's more profit margin and they don't really want to do PCs anymore?
Probably. I mean, you think about iPhones, that's a biannual guarantee.
Yeah.
Although sales are way down, I'm sure they're not losing money
Yeah.
in that department.
No, Apple's making all kinds of money hand over fist.
Uh,
And I guess a computer's more like a 5-year proposition, but I mean, it's still in the Mac Pro, like the little tin can, they're still selling X79. And, if the rumor mill is to be believed, we're staring down the barrel of X299, which is 3 generations removed from X79. So that's really, really disappointing if you're a content creation enthusiast, like somebody that is really excited about buying a $5,000 computer and you're using it for your day job and you're just you're using it to the point that flames are shooting out the fan holes, and you make your living with it. $5,000 for a computer is not really a big deal because that's what you're making your living with. And to still be selling X79 has got to be disappointing for somebody that's that much of an enthusiast.
How early in the year did the Note start blowing up?
Fairly early.
Maybe they saw that and they were like, you know what? We don't even have to try this year. We're going to get so many converts because planes went down by our competitor. Don't worry about it.
We didn't include it, but there was a troll that brought down a plane. Somebody had named their wireless access point Galaxy Note 7, and they were like wigging out, searching the plane, trying to find a note. There was no actual Note 7. And also, the other exciting technology for 2016 was self-driving cars. If you didn't hear, that's now called Waymo, as in Waymo self-driving cars on the road is what we need, from Google. So yeah, Waymo. So self-driving cars, this is the first year that I can remember. I've been told since the 80s that artificial intelligence is going to take over the universe and we're going to have robots doing everything for us. And advances made in machine learning in 2016, self-driving cars, like real actual pilot project, not pie in the sky. We've got Uber with their self-driving cars that, it's not perfect, but they'll iron it out. This might be, the beginning of something really amazing where artificial intelligence and machine learning, not in the way that we imagined in the 80s, but how it's implemented today, really is simplifying life.
It's funny that in the 80s, we thought we'd get flying cars way before we'd ever get self-driving cars.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I think this is the tipping point. It's not where it needs to be. It's still going to kill people. It's still going to have, horrible problems that are going to set it back. But I don't think there's any stopping it at this point.
No.
We're going to have self-driving cars. And if you don't like that, I'm sorry. I don't like it. But it's not going to stop. This is going to happen. And it's going to happen probably faster than a lot of us expect.
It's going to take over for long-haul delivery first. And then after that, God only knows.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be the sky. They're going to make so much money that the sky's the limit. It's like, oh, it ran over a kid. Pay him $3 million because they're going to save that much money. It's just not even going to be an afterthought.
And once it starts the long haul delivery, the learning of these machines, because they'll have so much data being fed back, is going to accelerate insanely.
Yeah, it's gonna rapidly improve and rapidly be basically untouchable in terms of like human driving. And if it goes to court, it's going to be like, well, if a human being was driving, the decision would have been much worse. So,
Right.
then insurance companies will still exist and insurance payouts will still exist and all that. It's not going to be flawless, but it'll be pretty good. So, it's a new year. What are you going to do with it? Well, you should join the Level 1 Text forums and we should do some projects together. There's actually already a lot of really amazing projects. And if you're into the feel-good Tony Robbins things, because Tony Robbins is hungry, get this blog post. There's 8,760 hours in next year, assuming that you don't sleep. So, what are you going to do to get motivated next year? Woo!
You can make a calendar for yourself. Make something you can ignore every day of 2017.
And then feel very bad that you're ignoring it and very bad that you're not doing anything that you said you were going to do.
You need to set up a lot of unrealistic goals and set dates that you are going to have those goals completed so that as you miss those dates, you go into a consecutive the worst shame spiral.
Yeah, downward spiral, as it were.
Yeah, and try to aim for alcoholism around May.
If you're not really excited by that, there's actually a lot of really good like time management tips. If you're not really good at managing your time or doing anything like that, there's some good info here. It's actually not really terrible. This is sort of an interesting blog that pops up in tech circles and hacker news and places like that from time to time. There are some decent articles here, but if that's not really your speed, I've got something else for you to occupy your time, and that is a web-based spirograph. Because my God, this is so much fun. I can't even. Yeah, web-based spirograph. Woohoo!
It is more entrancing than it has any right to be.
Yeah, it's a full spirograph kit in your web browser. Take that, JavaScript.
So while you're staring at your computer monitor, letting all those important dates that you set for yourself go by, you can numb your mind by staring at the spirograph and forgetting momentarily what a loser you are.
Now, next week is going to be really interesting. January 3rd, I don't know how we're going to do the news. We're either going to do the news a little late because there's an embargo that's lifting, or we're going to do the news and not talk about a thing, and then immediately you're going to get another video and then a flood of videos about things that the embargo is lifting on. In fact, completely out of frame right now is all kinds of stuff that we can't talk about that will be happening literally next Tuesday, which is maybe why we picked Tuesdays for the news. So, yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that's going to happen next week, and I have no idea if we're going to release the news on midnight like we normally do, or if it's going to be more like 9 a.m. on Tuesday. I don't know, but either way, be sure to look for this channel, a bunch of stuff on Tuesday, because there's going to be like 50 videos on Tuesday, and you should watch all of them because that would really help us out. So be sure to look for that. Be sure that the little bell is clicked on your subscription thingy, and we're going to go because they're playing us off. See you guys.
So yeah.